Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Chief Burton.
Here.
Mr. Bradshaw.
Here.
Mr. Cranston.
Yes.
Mr. Knopf.
Here.
Mr. Rigg.
Here.
Mr. Montecalvo.
Here.
Mr. Nolan.
Here. Motions for adjournment or any other motions? I see none. Applicants scheduled for completeness review. I think we have one. Jack, I think you wanted to make a statement before we start.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jack Serpico, the board attorney, and I thought if we start to outline what is going to happen tonight and what is not going to happen. The application is not on for a hearing tonight. The application is only here for the purposes of whether or not the board deems it complete. And then, if so, the hearing date will be scheduled. That's the hearing that everybody has an opportunity to speak for or against the application. That's the hearing that everybody has the opportunity to present evidence for against the application. That's the hearing where you will have an opportunity to cross-examine and review the documents, cross-examine the witnesses of the applicant, and review the documents. Completeness is something that's exclusively done by a board. It's a very technical thing. All it does is say, is the application ready to be put on and heard, or is it not? There's really not much of a debate. It's typically done via checklist. And if you have the documentation that gets you started, that's all that's necessary to deem it complete. We understand in complex applications that during the course of the proceedings, there may be requests for additional documentation, additional proofs that you are what you say you are, or somebody may submit proofs that says that the individual or the entity is not what they say they are, but that's not deceiving. So there's no public participation in a completeness hearing because it's not a matter of debate, it's not a matter of your opinion, it has nothing to do with that. If I were to allow something like that to occur, pardon me, some of you may be for an application, some of you may be against. Anything that you say before a hearing on the merits of the application, A, would not be under oath, which is not permissible, and B, could possibly prejudice the application or the members of the board's thinking one way or another before the actual application is presented. All that does is set the grounds for appeal. And nobody wants an appeal. We want to do a good job, we want a thorough job, and we want a sound decision. Everyone will be afforded an opportunity to speak. The board is very liberal when it comes to that. Everybody will be given an opportunity to present evidence. So with that, unfortunately, I have to advise you that you're really not going to be committed to participating in this hearing. Because that's just not permitted on that.
So Jack, to sum it up, this is a vote if the process has gone to this
That's it, yeah.
this part of the process or not. It's not a for or against.
No, it's not. It has absolutely nothing to do with how the board feels about the case. They haven't heard the case yet. So
As it would be with any project
with
at
any,
this point.
it's with any project, okay? All this is to say, okay, you've got sufficient documentation in to get you to first base. Under the law, and you'll understand it a little bit more when I give you the time. Under the law, everything has to be done timely. When applications are submitted for development, a board, whether it's planning or a zoning board, in this case a combined board, has the obligation to deem an application complete or incomplete within 45 days of the date that it's submitted. The reason you have to do that is because, especially in a case like this one, there's a use variance with a site plan. We only have 120 days from the date that the application is deemed completed to put it on for a hearing and get it concluded. Now, we can extend that out with the consent of the applicant in a complex case, but the whole idea is you've got to comply with the law so that applications are moved on a timely basis. If you fail to operate within the 45-day period, whether you deem it complete or incomplete, it's automatically complete. And then the 120 days begins to run regardless. And you got to be careful with the 120 days when it expires, because in some cases, there are towns that have the lost side of things, and then they can the applicant can say, I get an automatic approval after 120 days, because my application was deemed complete 140 days ago. You didn't give me my hearing. Courts don't always rule in favor of that section of the statute, but we run that risk. So that's the reason why we have a completeness hearing. So I don't want anyone to think that I'm not going to afford you, or the board is not going to afford you the opportunity to be heard, the opportunity to present your case, present your comments for or against. That's not what this is about. We will bend over backwards to make sure that everyone's rights are protected and everybody has an opportunity as a citizen.
Jack, can you also, if you don't mind, let the residents know about the process of who's able to vote for this and who's not, and why people are choosing?
Yeah, I'll do that. Okay.
Because you're going to see me get up and leave in a minute, and you should understand why that is.
Right. Highlands is in a unique position. Highlands is one of the towns that has a combined zoning and planning board. Okay, for example, I've been representing Asbury Park for many, many years. We have a distinct zoning board, we have a distinct planning board. Highlands, until a year or two ago, had both. Zoning boards are comprised of different members of the community versus planning boards. Zoning boards are typically comprised of what's known as Class 4 members, who are individual citizens who, A, do not hold an elected office, with the exception of the Board of Ed member, which we don't have in the case. And planning boards are composed of 4 classes of members: mayor or mayor's designee, a class 1. Class 2 is an appointed official that works in the community. In our case, our class 2 member is chief clerk. Number 3 is an elected official, and that would be Mr. Browser. And then number 4 are just general citizens. This case that we're going to hear involves a use variance, and it involves site plan in connection with that use variance. A use variance is only within the jurisdiction of a zoning board. So when we sit on this application, we would be sitting as if we were a zoning board. And only the zoning board, up to only 7 members may vote, because the zoning board cannot have more than 7, and 2 alternates. But they must be either class 4 members, and class 2 is also one individual. So you will see all of the elected officials leaving. Not because they don't trying to avoid a decision, but they cannot participate in this application because we're going to wear the hat of the zoning board when we decide this case. One more thing to further complicate things, or hopefully not. I know that some of you may have attended the Borough Council meeting. In a use variance situation, if the Board of Adjustment grants a use variance, Highlands happens to have an ordinance that permits the appeal to go to the mayor and council. If a use variance is denied, you cannot go to the mayor and council, you have to go directly to the school. But that's something to be decided way down the road, if and when that happens.
Good, thank you, sir. With that,
Well, at this point, which members will be able to vote here tonight?
everybody except...
I'm going to have a secretary call off class 4 members,
Right.
as well as Mr. Burton, he's a class 2 member.
And we have alternates, I believe.
Their alternates, if they're class 4 members, which I believe they are.
I think all the alternates are, Jack, yeah.
So then they would move into the place. We can have a discussion with more than 7, but we can only have a maximum vote of 7.
And we're okay with 6 for the completeness, correct, Jack? For the record, we're okay with 6 members for...
That is
for
correct. We're
completeness.
not deciding a use variance. A use variance requires 5 affirmative votes out of 7, not a simple majority of 4 out of 7, because use variances are special. Tonight, we're not deciding the use variance, we're only deciding whether or not the application is going to be listed for a hearing date. So we're just going to perform a general administrative task, so a simple majority of a quorum. If we had 4 members in attendance of what would be comprised of the zoning element, more than likely we would have a quorum, and 3 out of 4 would do. So if we have 6 or 7, a simple majority to move the case forward, to get it on the agenda, to get the ball rolling for submission.
Good? Everybody good at the table? We know what we're doing?
Okay?
So what I would ask is that anyone who is a Class 3 or 4 member, or Class 2, Class 1 or 3 member, to please excuse yourself and step down.
Thank you, Mr. Braswell. For the record, Mr. Braswell has recused himself.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. First on the agenda, Polaris Retreat LLC, 181 Bay Avenue. I believe Mr. Kennedy is representing them.
Yes, good evening.
How are you, sir?
Thank you, and thank you for the preliminary introductions and comments, and for what it's worth, I totally agree, and I thank you. We're here for a completeness hearing. And I know that there's a lot of this application has generated public interest, and we welcome that, and we will certainly address all those things at the right time.
Okay.
Thank you.
I know that the board has documents, obviously, for the application. We have a narrative. I believe, was that written by you, Mr. Kennedy?
Yes, it was.
And I know we have a punch list dated April 19th that was sent to our board secretary, Mrs. O'Neill. So, you're on the
So,
clock,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman, very, very simply, we are not proposing a lot of site work to this. It's the United Methodist Church, and we're proposing to use the property as a residential healthcare facility, and we're going to use an extensive amount of testimony when the time is right. Based upon the limited site work that we're proposing, we are asking that the application be deemed complete, with the understanding that if you deem it complete, and as Mr. Serpico indicated, if you deem it complete and during the course of the hearing, you as a board feel you need more information, we obviously will give you that more information.
Okay. And it's fair to say that if, as in every other application, and you've been here many times, that if anyone has any questions before the next hearing, assuming it was, agreed that you were
Yes.
completing this, that we'd get those answers at that meeting. It wouldn't have to be held off. You'd want to be prepared, obviously.
Absolutely.
Okay. You want to start the process then, sir?
Well, I think
Jack?
really the board, okay, essentially, we should probably hear from Mr. Euro from his perspective, because
Okay.
his office does the review of the technical data to make sure that he has sufficient information to proceed.
And I know we have a letter from T&M on this matter. Please, sir.
Yes, thank you. We have reviewed the documents that have been submitted to the board, and we have found them to be acceptable to move forward as a complete application. There is plenty of information for us to do our review, and as Mr. Kennedy mentioned, during the course of testimony, if anything else comes to mind, we will request that additional information be submitted at that time.
Okay. So the date, I just want to make sure for the record, the letter dated June 7th, 2018 from T&M sums it up that you believe right now they're in the process to go forward to where we are in the process.
That is correct.
Okay.
I have a comment.
Please, sir.
I understand that there may be, as part of this application, an application to use an off-site parking area.
That was initially part of it.
Is that still the case?
We're not sure yet. We
Okay,
don't know
if
yet.
we proceed on that basis, we're going to require that notice be given within 200 feet of that subject property as well.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank
So
you.
that's just not the subject property, it's the ancillary site as well.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's fine.
Jack, if there's questions on the, I assume you have this in front of you too, the letter dated April 19th from Mr. Kennedy to our planning board
No,
secretary?
I do not, but that's okay.
Okay, so there's, for lack of a better word, it's a different narrative. The other thing says narrative, but I think this would be it's almost like a punch list on the process that he sent to our board, and we all got copies, I believe, last week. If we have questions on some of these points, because it could be argued that it would make it complete or not, based on this unique project.
You gotta be careful.
Well, that's what
Because
I'm
you don't
asking.
want to discuss anything that comes close to talking about the subjective portion of the application or the request. Because then that runs afoul of completeness principle.
Well, let me ask you a hypothetical. So you have it in your hand right now or no?
Yes.
All right, April 19th, 2018, right?
Got it.
Number 5.
Okay,
Number 5, basically, to my understanding, again, this is just from reading the documents we have, there's certain requirements from the state.
Got it. Let me interrupt.
Please.
Okay? It's going to be the applicant's burden to prove to this board that the representation in number 5 is a legal representation and backed by law and fact.
And that would then be at the hearing
That's at
also?
the hearing.
Okay.
That has to be done at the hearing. But that's getting into the merits of the case.
Go to number 9.
Okay?
If number 9, if we didn't agree personally with the
Well,
waiver,
That's okay.
Is
What
it
you
then
can
not
do is,
complete?
you can still go to the hearing. If you find during the course of the hearing, which was just mentioned by me as well as Mr. Kennedy, that you're not gonna waive something, or you want more data on something, the applicant will have to supply it.
okay?
Okay, they can request a waiver, you can deny it. You know, remember, the basis for a waiver are no different, similar in nature to the basis for a variance.
Yeah, no matter what, sure.
So, if during the course of the hearing, the applicant, for example, says, I would like the waiver of submitting a landscaping plan, you say, I don't think so.
Okay.
You're going to ask the poll members. of the
Or
board.
waiver for parking or anything else, yeah.
Yeah. So that gets more into the merits of the case.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman?
please.
I guess this is a question also for Jack.
Yes.
Again, reading the narrative provided by Mr. Kennedy and then reading through the Polaris Statement of Services, I find a disconnect in my mind.
Okay, go ahead.
I find a disconnect in my mind between residential services and...
That's content.
Okay, let me finish the thought.
No, I gotta be careful, because I don't, let me suggest something to you. I think this letter should be worth about the paper that it's written on, not disparaging Mr. Kennedy in any way, shape, or form. But in
Meaning
terms of
what, Jack?
what's important to you to hear the case,
Tonight, you mean?
yeah, for tonight, at the time of the application, it's the applicant's burden to prove to you by a preponderance of the evidence that what they're claiming is true. You don't,
All right, I'm going to stay very general.
yes.
I question how, if my concern is about the type of facility, and they will prove it,
Yes,
how does T&M provide an adequate review letter if in fact we think it's way different and we don't have, at this point, what I'm looking for in
I
my
get what you're
mind,
saying.
what I'm looking for is
I get what you're
the
saying.
state saying, yes, this is what it is.
Again, that's the applicant's burden. If during the course of the hearing, this is not going to take one evening, okay? Market Street mission in Asbury Park took me 7 years. Okay? 2 years before the board and 5 years before the courts. Okay?
Okay.
As this case evolves, anything like that comes in, you're not just going to get one report from T&M. You're going to probably get T&M to come back and do some research for you for the next hearing for a point that may be brought up as to quote, is this a licensed facility by the state of New Jersey?
And since the clock starts by declaring complete, aren't we better off by getting some of this stuff as a requirement for completeness,
No.
which delays the clock start?
That's why I asked my question, and I wouldn't even say delay, because that can be seen as a bad thing. What I'm trying to say to you is, if I know, let's just say for argument's sake, I wasn't sitting here and I want to open a bar somewhere, and I had to get a liquor license, and we know that process is in 3 days, right? So if I go before a board and the clock starts when I get a completeness, and my red tape of that process is going to take me past the 120, then I really wasn't complete, because I didn't get approved yet for the license to do business for the job I want to do.
No, you're getting hung up on the detail.
The devil's in the details.
Yeah, no, well, that's why you have me. Okay.
Oh, I love you.
I wouldn't get up on it.
I do, I love
But
it.
really, no, I wouldn't get hung up on that, because once the application starts, we've asked Mr. Kennedy on a number of applications, will he consent to an extension of time, and he does. If the applicant does not extend, and you have questions, you can say, if they say no, well, I think we'll take a vote right now based on what we have in front
Oh,
of
and
us.
this isn't a knock
No,
on,
I'm saying
Mr.
that-
Kennedy or his ability, he's
No.
been before us many
So-
times.
but-
This is a unique thing that I think that if it's anything that has to do with, call it regulations, licenses, and things like that that are beyond the borough of Highlands, we can't control that time frame.
No, but
And
he's
if
gonna
they
have
fail to
to,
meet that burden,
he's gonna have to supply them.
I understand.
And that's during the course of the hearing, and not necessarily up front. We don't, we've got, from my review of what I see and from what Bob's comments are, you've got enough to deem the application complete and move forward from a legal perspective, okay? As this case is going to evolve, okay, as I said earlier, you're going to get proofs in, there's going to be lots of questions, and you're going to ask for these licenses and all that sort of thing, and they're going to have to supply that to you, and if we need further research by the planning firm, we'll get further research by the planning firm.
A follow-up question, do we have a legal basis for declaring it not complete?
I got a better question for you. What is the definition of complete or not complete on any application?
Does it meet the ordinance in general, not the...
What ordinance?
Our ordinance in general.
Which ordinance? I'm not trying to be funny.
Our site plan ordinance. Our site plan ordinance.
There's a lot of people that have never been at a planning board meeting or zoning board or whatever the board is these days, meeting, so they're all learning this for the first time.
Well, actually, I think that it does not meet the ordinance. So one of the things that would be required in this application is some buffering, and I think the lack of a landscape plan would make the application incomplete.
Unless they're asking for a waiver for it, which they are. So in that case...
And that would be what I went back to, which is the second one I mentioned, which I believe is number 9.
The decision
correct?
of whether or not you're going to grant the waiver is based on the testimony you hear at the hearing. It's not a decision you're going to make tonight. You can't make a decision on a waiver request tonight.
So let's just stick to, and I apologize, let's hit it again, I'm sorry.
Right.
What are the requirements for complete or incomplete legally? Obviously, we have our professionals say they believe we're at a point where it can be deemed complete.
I don't deem applications complete. And T&M typically looks at files. They see the site plan. They know what the site plan requirements are in general and our ordinance. And if they feel they have enough information to review and give you a sound determination based on what they've seen, then the the documentation should be complete only for completion purposes. That's all.
You started to read the ordinance.
You mind?
No, I didn't read the ordinance. I was trying to find a section in the book that I read.
Can you, I'd like to know
Okay. That might take me a little time. I wasn't expecting.
Guys, please, sorry.
Okay, I got it.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay. The decision as to completeness, I'm reading from page 2.
Folks, please.
Cox Tree-ish, 2000, is the most current edition. The decision as to completeness is quantitative rather than qualitative. Okay, 14-1.2 current law, New Jersey statute 40.55D-10.3 now provides an application for development shall be complete for purposes of commencing the applicable time period for action by a municipal agency when so certified by the municipal agency or its authorized committee or designee. In the event that agency, committee, or designee does not certify the application to be complete within 45 days of the date of its submission, the application shall be deemed complete upon completion of the 45-day period for purposes of commencing the applicable time period unless A, the application lacks information indicated on a checklist adopted by ordinance of the borough, and provided to the applicant, and B, the municipal agency or its authorized committee or designee has notified the applicant in writing of the application. The applicant may request that one or more submission requirements be waived, in which event the agency or its authorized committee shall grant or deny the request within 45 days. Now, that's the difference. Not a design waiver. That's the difference. There's a difference between a design waiver and a document waiver. Design waiver, you decide similar if there's insufficient parking, or you think the landscape...
But that's at the hearing.
That's at the hearing. But there's two different waivers. I just don't want you confused.
Yeah.
Nothing herein shall be construed as diminishing the applicant's obligation to prove in the application process that he is entitled to approval of the application. The municipal agency may require correction of any information found to be in error and submission of additional information not specified in the ordinance or any revisions in the accompanying documents as reasonably necessary to make an informed decision as to whether the requirements necessary for approval of the application for development have been met. The application shall not be deemed incomplete for lack of any such additional information or any revisions in the accompanying documents so required by the municipal agency. Basically, it's a checklist. And you don't typically do the checklist. I assume Tina may look at a checklist. They do this all the time. And that's it.
Okay.
So, I think I heard that the, the waiver of submission requirements, that is, the submission requirements are part of our checklist, and they're asking for a waiver of that, and that this is the point where we deny that,
If you're going to deny it.
if we're going to deny it.
Or at the hearing,
Or
you ask
approve
for it.
I'm sorry?
Or at the hearing, you ask for it.
Either way, yes. That is one way to do it, Rob, absolutely. But, my inclination is to let's see this information. I think we'll be better
You
informed.
have the checklist in front of you that you can go down, decide what is going to comply with it.
I would assume we have it. I assume Ed has it, no, Ed?
I do not have it with me.
Ed doesn't work here anymore.
I'm sorry.
I do not have it with me. I would have to check the files back in the office upon doing our initial review of the application.
Okay.
Okay, so, hang on, guys, let us go through the process. So, the checklist that I have in front of me is not a checklist, again, it's a letter from Mr. Kennedy. Seeing no checklist, can anyone tell me on the record that we have a checklist and they went down and checked it?
I don't get involved in the application
If
process.
it's my deal, I'll start doing it, I just, you know, if I'm supposed to be doing it, I'll do it.
When you do that, site plan application.
Would it be on the web, would it be on
The
our...
application, I've asked the secretary, because I'm going to make an assumption, that when you give out an application for site plan or subdivision approval or anything like that, there's usually a checklist that's written.
I'm not trying to put anybody in a spot or make anyone feel bad, but if we basically are saying now that the whole purpose of this is to make sure we went down the checklist, and we don't have a checklist, and we don't know if we went down it, it's probably a little bit of a problem.
Right, there is the checklist,
Uh-huh,
and when I take it in, I go down that checklist,
okay,
and that is what gets sent to T&M then.
and then they have parts of it too,
Then to
correct?
confirm.
Right.
They're really the ones that are
To prove it out,
determining
right.
if,
They satisfy that.
you know, some of it's very obvious, but there are things that are beyond my scope.
And they're probably
to know.
unique to the
So
application.
that's why, when he gets it, that's why they do their checklist.
So do we know if that happened between our professionals?
I can say that we reviewed the application information that was submitted to us,
Okay,
and we are comfortable with the information submitted. There's enough information there for us to do a proper review that we can recommend that the board move this forward as a complete application.
but by borough ordinance, we don't have the checklist and we don't know if we went down.
My staff, if there was a checklist submitted to us, my staff reviewed it. I don't have it in the file to confirm.
Hang on, guys, hang on. So, we don't have... Guys, please, let us go through the process, please. Do you want to wait? Okay.
No, I would...
Hang on, guys, please.
I would be...
Let us go through the
concerned-
process.
I would be concerned deeming the application complete, then putting the board under the gun to come to a decision within the 120 days, unless the applicants were willing to waive that deadline at this point.
As we would any application, if we don't have...
We're going to
yeah.
require more things down the road.
Okay. Anything, guys? Any comments, questions, or concerns? Okay. Any motions on the table?
I don't think it's complete. I made
Based
that
on?
motion. Based on the fact that we have details about this application that we want to know about going into the hearing, and we don't have it.
I'm going to second your motion, but I'm going to add that I don't have a checklist, and for any project going forward, we should have that and know that we did it. That should be a requirement of every application. It sounds like it's in the borough ordinance already, and we didn't do it. Shame on us, but, so I'll second it. Roll call. This is to deem it not complete.
Mr. Chairman, may I
Sure.
be heard, or?
Yeah, please. It's okay right in the middle of this, Jack?
Yeah, you're right, Chief.
I certainly understand the sensitivities, and I certainly understand, I've been before this board enough on more traditional residential applications, so I certainly know the thoroughness with which you all review every application, and I totally appreciate that. What I would respectfully suggest is the checklist is mostly technical items. It'll say, on your site plan, you have to have the north arrow. You have to have the space for the board secretary to sign and the owner's name. If you're removing trees, a tree preservation. It's more technical things to that effect. I also would want to say, Chief is concerned about putting the board under the pressure about having an application deemed complete. I certainly understand that, as Mr. Serpico indicated, if an application is just hanging out, there is the possibility that it could be deemed automatically complete. Courts don't like to do that, but why put yourself at risk? I understand that, and I'm a board attorney, and would say the exact same things that Mr. Serpico indicated. However, at the first hearing, whenever that hearing is going to be, I'm assuming we are not going to be finished. And I think one of the last things that you all say to me before we leave the room is you ask me to consent to extend the time frame, and of course we will. Because first of all, it's the right thing to do, if we didn't finish our hearing. And if we didn't, I think you would say, well, based upon the lack of information that you presented, and the application would be denied. So you would not get trapped, and I would suggest, and I don't know this for a fact, that there's several applications, maybe not right now, that have been pending. I know that you all have questions, and I've heard some of those questions, and we're going to answer those questions. I would respectfully suggest that some of those questions aren't necessarily in the context of about both state licensing requirements and LLC information. Totally fair request, and we'll get that to you. But I would respectfully suggest that might not be part of the traditional checklist in terms of deeming the application complete, and I certainly defer to how you all wish to proceed.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. So we have an offer for a denial of the completeness and a second, offered by Mr. Francie, second by me, Frank Nolan. Roll call, please.
Chief Burton,
Yes.
Yes is not being incomplete. Not being complete.
Yes, correct.
Mr. Francis,
Yes?
Mr. Knopf,
Yes.
Mr. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Montecalvo,
Yes.
Mr. Nolan,
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, so what we'll do is I appreciate the time, and we will work with your board secretary and board engineer and board attorney to request some of the additional information that is required.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming up.
I think you're asking for additional information that's on this so-called checklist.
Correct, and I think that you can get with either Mr. Serpico, right, or, okay, who would it be? T&N or Ms. O'Neill? Thank you, Mr. Kennedy.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, next on the list is approval, denial of resolutions. I know we have Eureka Properties, 228 Bay Ave, was a bulk variance to cover a front porch, and I believe that was approved, correct?
It was.
You need a,
and there's the resolution in front of you that you would sign.
oh, okay.
Excuse me, Mr.
You
Nolan?
know what, can we take 5 minutes? That's what you want to do?
Well, no,
Go ahead.
we should probably explain to the public what just happened. and what's gonna happen next.
Sure. Well, we don't know what's gonna happen next.
Well,
But,
we don't know what's gonna happen.
hang on 1 second, Jack, I think you should
Yeah,
be the
there's no
talk.
need for an extension because the application is deemed incomplete, so the time doesn't start, the clock doesn't begin to run, okay? Until such time as the application will be deemed complete. That's when the 120 days will begin to run.
I guess my main question is too, will they be back for the July meeting?
Well, no, I don't know that.
That's up to the applicant.
That's up to, after the applicant confers with T&M and they just figure out what the deficiencies are, and if they can be brought
If any.
in by that time, then maybe they'll be back on for a complete.
So basically, folks, you gotta keep your eye on the borough website and look at the planning board, agenda going forward. It's a possibility it's back for another completeness hearing, or any other applicant that didn't get, ruled complete on the July meeting. Right now, it was deemed incomplete by the board.
And what is that July date?
11.
The 11th,
The 11th,
yes,
thank you.
July 11th, Wednesday, the 11th.
Are we entitled to see the requirements? Like, are we entitled?
I don't know that, Jack, is that
If
public?
they're in the ordinance, certainly. Whatever's in the ordinance.
So what
Can
would-
you print them up for the next meeting?
No, you go to the general ordinances and look at them.
Where would we find the
That's what's
The other thing you could do, as I mentioned, is the application process. You can go down to Borough Hall, get that
I was gonna
application.
say, you can go to Borough
It'll be attached
Hall.
to it, so you
Yeah.
can see what that checklist is.
And you could, they'll just give you a generic checklist so you know what any applicant is required. Yes.
Question.
Thank you, Ms.
The
Kennedy.
T&M person here doesn't have a nameplate, but I get the name.
Sorry, ma'am?
The T&M engineer? I didn't get your name.
Robert Yura, Y-U-R-A.
That's from T&M, ma'am, that's our board engineer, just so you know, in case you didn't know.
I work for a planner.
Okay, just so, a lot of people don't, so, so you know. Okay, folks, so that, means the application is deemed incomplete, and they may or may not be back at the next meeting, which is July 11th. Okay? So next on the agenda,
You guys want to take 5 minutes?
want to take a few minutes? I think everybody else cares about the rest, or not as much?
Why don't it just be us?
Let's take, hey, Nancy, can we?
Are we adjourned right now?
General comments? Thank you. Correct. Cannot apply, cannot move that plan. So I really appreciate this. That point out, cannot know the pressure. Thank you very much for asking that. That cannot be interrupted. It has to be kept. We have to have that. It can't be again.
See you July.
Have a good night.
Yeah, because they converted some of that space. They added kitchens and nobody noticed.
Oh, yeah, well, we knew that. There's probably only 3 people in the house.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Well, I didn't know, because when
You can ask them a general question, just don't be specific. Like, how many applications? Just ask them in general. Just say in general. What is it? As long as you don't mention the specific, then you're good.
Oh, the water permit, but whatever, it wasn't inspected
So during the process, the hearing is what was said earlier, the board would ask for that information, and it's their burden to supply that to us. If they don't, then the application could be denied based on that basis.
Sandy Howard.
So you just get my opinion?
Church related, they were fake news, they didn't.
Remember you asked me at the meeting if I could have an opinion, I said I'd be sitting this to it, so.
How could you
I believe that's coming to fruition. I think they had a comment at the last meeting. I wasn't Well, yes, private school. I mean, if the town has an agreement on parking, I'm sure it'll be a no-brainer. Can't guarantee it, but I'm sure it'll be looked on favorably.
I'm rolling my eyes because when I think of... We need to make sure that it is. Someone comes to me, I want to see the... Especially when the...
Okay. Yes, it would.
I don't want to cut Jack off.
We've been getting out these we did not do any stones on them. We did not cut them any slack. Everything that was supposed to have.
All right, well, here's what I would do. I would reword completed application to
Hey, Jack.
This is my comment. I'm not asking for judgment on you like I think it's valid. What I'm saying to you is my comment as a citizen of this town is that instead of saying completed application, just say completed application.
Mr. Chairman, I think you have to have a public comment.
Yeah, a little bit. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, that's like, honestly, that's a good game.
We just took
We're done with this now.
adjournment.
See you later. I didn't see what you with the post on.
We're going to reconvene the meeting in just a few minutes.
I'm sure they'll be back.
Where's the public comment? Well, before you actually vote.
Yeah, see you. I got these. Keep your eye on the agendas, that's all I'm saying.
Has it been fun yet?
No, this town reminds me so much of the town I grew up in, Lambertville, New Jersey.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
Highlands County, right across the bridge where you walk out.
Oh, okay. Yes, we can pick you up. And I'm not gonna put you under oath, we always,
Because it's a
Well,
statement.
first of all, I've never actually been under oath in any meeting I've ever, well, and when I was voting, but never to give a public comment. This is my opinion on things. that I
when you
saw.
come back in the other.
First of all, sir, can I please speak? It's public.
Let me finish my job. I'm trying to protect your
I've never
rights.
seen an attorney so involved in a public meeting as I have this evening, and that is a fact. I'm having public comment. I'm not speaking to the attorney, I'm speaking to the board members here.
Okay.
First of all, I'd like
But
to
he's telling
commend
you
you.
the right process. So
I'd like to commend you on the way you talked through that process, because in my opinion, I do contracting work. I live up 254 Navasink Avenue. My name is Mike Lane. I wrote down some things when I've been watching it, and as I said, it's my opinion to you, the board members, that I think the attorney is a little heavily involved in some processes that were going on. But you talk your way through it, it's understandable. Because my comment is on whether this was completed in the way the process was being done. Completed application to me seems to, mean to me, it's completed. Not a completed idea, which is what it felt like. That's my opinion. Whether I'm for or against the project is not what I'm talking about. It's just the way the process is going through. You know, if I build a house or something, I come down and I got to show you my license, I show you my business certificate, I have a business, I got insurance, I have all those details, so that nobody's wasting any time. So I thought that was a great thing they did. I also was talking to the town attorney that when they're explaining this thing about class 4, class 3, class 2, listen, I can grasp some of it, 20 minutes or something like that. But there really needs to be some, maybe I'll do it and print it up. Everybody needs to understand that, because it is confusing when you sit out here, you have two boards. So it's kind of confusing to people seeing two board meetings, planning and zoning at the same time. That's a bit confusing, but I understand how it works for this town, and if it works, that's a good thing. But it needs to be explained or printed out in a way that everybody can understand it. I feel if I can understand it, everybody in the room can understand it. I also wrote the punch list. That was, I thought, very important. I mean, if you have a punch list and we didn't have it, we did the right thing. I think the off-site parking is important to consider for any project. It was important to consider for the church when they're knocking the record down for some parking. It was the letter went around to all the homes that were there. I wrote down two other things, a checklist, and the July meeting, which we've established as 2/11. It is my understanding that if
July 11th.
July 11th, if it gets back on the docket, it'll be on the website.
It should be on the agenda, which is normally posted the latest the Friday before the meeting.
Well, thank you. Thank you for letting me have public comment.
No problem. Have a good night. I'm sorry I went out of order to Mr. Serpico, I didn't realize it. So, back down to approval, denial resolution.
Excuse me, Chairman. Do you want to see if anybody else has public comments?
Good point. Anybody else have any public comments in general, not on any specific testimony on any specific applicant? No? Okay. 21801, Eureka Properties, 228 Bay Ave, a bulk variance to cover the front porch, which I believe was approved.
Right, that you're signing the,
Everybody, we need a motion, correct? For the resolution, I'll offer it.
I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
Chief Burton,
Yes.
Chris Francis,
Yes.
Mr. Knox,
Abstained, I was noticed.
Mr. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Montecalvo,
Yes.
Mr. Nolan.
Yes. Sounds like the motion passed. 21802, which is Ruby, 7 Marine Place, which was a denial, the bulk variance.
Mr. Kennedy and I spoke, we'll bring that in at the next meeting.
So we're going to move that to the next meeting? Okay. Do you need a motion for that, sir?
No.
Okay, so that's going to be at the July 11th meeting. Number 3 on the list is 2017-12, Our Lady Perpetual Health, site plan approval with variances to configure the rectory for the part of the parking lot.
Okay, for the record, since yesterday, I made a couple of changes. I left out a couple of words, I had a couple of typos.
Okay.
And yesterday, I had received comments, Mr. Euro, which I put in. And I neglected to put in lot 3 as well, and I put in lot 3.
And it's okay to pass it? Okay. I'll offer that.
I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
Chief Burton,
Yes.
Mr. Francis,
Yes.
Mr. Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Montecalvo,
Yes.
and Mr. Nolan.
Yes. Resolution passes. We got action on any other business, which is a review need for the board to hold completeness review meeting versus P&N review, and then move to a hearing. Anybody want to, I'll start the conversation on it. I think that.
Actually, I'd like to table that because we have a lot of members not here.
Okay.
Makes sense?
I'll second that. Want to put it on the July 11th meeting? Okay. Should we do a roll call on that, Joe?
Sure.
Okay, I'll offer that. Mr. Francine offered it. I seconded it. Can we have a roll call?
Chief Burton,
Yes.
Mr. Francis,
Just one comment. I think we need to consider, I think we need to look at this issue in light of what's transpired tonight's meeting, because we wouldn't be here if we were going by this process. And with that, I vote yes to table.
To the July 11th meeting.
Right.
Mr. Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Montecalvo,
Yes.
Mr. Nolan.
Yes. Approval of minutes, I know we got it via email, I believe it was last week, May 9th, I think I know I was here.
I was here.
Anybody have any comments on the minutes, anything they saw erroneous or left out, or?
I'm good.
Okay, I'll offer it,
I'll second it.
second by Mr. Knox, roll call.
Chief Burton,
Yes.
Mr. Francis,
Yes.
Mr. Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Montecalvo,
Yes.
Mr. Nolan.
Yes. Go down to communication and vouchers, we have waterfront permits. Sorry, who's speaking to that?
I do have some knowledge of the situation.
Okay.
This is a project up on Portland Road, I'm going to say 3 years ago, some time frame like that.
Okay.
And in the testimony of the, during the hearing, there was a commitment by the developer, in this case is Scoturo, to maintain public access to the river.
Okay.
The residents who have written this letter have done some research, and there is a pathway down to the river that is part of these phantom pathways that pass through Highlands. We have the stairs that go up out of Highlands, all right, that nobody owns, town doesn't own, but they exist, and
Nobody maintains.
yeah. So this pathway is one I didn't know about, but it is shown on older maps.
Okay.
The residents are asking the DEP to maintain their rights.
Okay.
And the land use board took testimony from the applicant where he said he would maintain the rights. But it was vague, the way he said it, it was vague what rights he was maintaining. When I read the transcript, in my mind, he was talking about the riverfront, the high tide line, rights to the high tide line. But at this point...
But not access to it?
Huh?
But not access to it?
Correct. That's what these people are fighting. And they're worried. Let me say it differently. They've heard that there's very little enforcement of planning board, land use board decisions, except with a fight. You know, and at this point, they want to be proactive at it. They wrote the DEP.
Have they seen plans, Chris, that is contrary to what he said? Is it, you know what I mean, like a fence going through it? Is it getting blocked off?
What's the emphasis?
Is there a house built right in front
I
of it?
haven't seen that.
But it doesn't really say that either.
A, but B, I've seen the historical documents that show that the path existed.
I've been there. I've seen
Before
it.
the,
Yeah, no, I've seen it
yeah.
too.
So this is just a warning shot to the town. The letter is directed to us, but also to the DEP.
Right.
And the town needs to, and it's probably code enforcement, Jack?
You've read the letter, I assume, Jack, on this?
Sorry?
Which letter are you referring to?
It's signed by a group
It's
of...
about 9 people on Portland Road.
Right.
Not seen that.
I
And
would recommend, and we obviously let's have Jack look at it.
they approached me looking for how to handle this, and so at this point, I told them to write this letter. At this point, to make a notification.
Okay.
So, in my mind, the town has an obligation to review the transcript, and then to hold the applicant accountable for his commitment.
Hey, can I make a suggestion, Jack? Can we put this on the communication agenda for July, so you have time to review this and see if we're going to do anything at all? Or if we should, and if there is an enforcement, that's my point.
And Jack,
If there is an enforcement issue.
I will highlight the transcript section that talks about the commitment.
So I'm going to make a motion that we put this on the July 11th meeting on the communication.
Thank you.
Second?
Second.
Who's second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Burton?
Yes.
Mr. Francis?
Yes.
Mr. Knopf?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Montalvo?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes. Next thing is we have invoice from T&M Associates. I have, I know there was one invoice for $350 that is for the meeting on May 9th,
The rest is just backup.
and the rest is just backup. I know that's been the standard for a while, I'll offer that.
Second.
Roll call, please. Mr. Francie.
Chief Burton?
Yes.
Mr. Francis?
Yes.
Mr. Knopf?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Montalvo?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes. Take a motion to adjourn?
So made.
Ayes have it. Thanks, everybody, for coming out tonight.
Thank you. Good night.
Nance, all I had in front of me was this, the T and M, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
I think,
Just want to make sure there was nothing else.
no.